Hello everyone and welcome to Bobbin's Let's Play Minecraft series featuring the Infinity Evolved Skyblock mod pack. You're watching episode 4. Between episodes I started doing a little agricraft. I've got a farm area set up here on my second platform now, and I've been growing some of these crops, trying to get the seeds improved, and so I've made some progress. This pumpkin looks like it's a 666. This one's a 566, 765, and I've got a new one here in the middle that's growing. This is how I usually do agricraft, and it works well in this mod pack. This particular approach does not work with every configuration, but in this particular mod pack it does work very well, which is to grow 4 of them in a plus sign with the one that you're crossing in the middle. So if I were to come over here to these carrots, for example, I'd wait until that one was mature, then I'd just put my cross crops down in the middle, and then what I would do is when the seed grew in, I'd go ahead and break it like I can do this one right here, take it over to the seed analyzer and get the stats on it. This one is another 666. I'm apparently cursed on my pumpkins. And I would find the seed here that has the lowest stats. It looks like it's a tie for a couple of them with 2 6s and a 5, and I would just replace that one. Then when this one matures, go and cross again and try to improve the stats that way. I have seen mod packs where the configuration was a little different and this particular approach was not the best, but for this mod pack it does seem to be one of the most effective ways of doing it. This will get your crops up pretty quickly. The other thing I'm doing is I'm taking my starting crops that I'm eventually going to breed everything else from and getting them up to 10 10 10 first before crossing them. That way everything that I cross will start with a bonus to its stats, as compared to just crossing them from whatever I had on hand to begin with and working on leveling them up later. So that's something else to consider. I think the best you can actually start with in this mod pack is 555 on those stats, and then you will have to go up from there using this type of thing. But if it's a crop that you aren't going to breed anything else from and you don't care about, possibly rutabagas, then you don't need to go to all that trouble. There will be some that you'll want to do that with a lot. Anything you're going to want to produce a great deal of, you want to have it producing the maximum amount. Just taking a stroll around the base to see what else is new. I have been making some dirt and getting some more seeds, so I've now got birch trees. I just got a rubber sapling. It is the MFR one. When you get the rubber seed and you plant it in this pack, it will give either the MFR sapling or the industrial craft sapling. The rubber from them is interchangeable, but I kind of prefer the mechanics on the Mine Factory Reloaded one, so that I'm glad I got that one. And continuing on around, you can see off in the distance that I have built a third platform. It is empty right now except for a chest containing some platform building supplies. I have also expanded this little arrangement, which at the end of the last episode had 1 generator on it. Now it has 6. And so that means that it is running at 3/4 of its unaugmented speed. So it's actually beginning to sift quite a bit of stuff. I've got a lot more materials than this from it. I will have to go and empty it in a little bit because it's going to eventually start doing this dust. I'm switching from gravel to dust for a little while. The other thing that I've done between episodes is really just get a whole lot of materials. I did also set up this this production piece right here for obsidian. And I've got 16 obsidian in here. So all that has to happen for this, to make obsidian you need a stone barrel, which is what this thing in the middle is, and you need a block of water on top of it. I've just got a cage set up with a single block of water in it just sitting on top of this. There is a slab on top of it to prevent rain from falling into this barrel. Rain does fall through a block of water to fill a barrel, so you don't want that to happen. And right now, if I want to make obsidian, I've got 16 in there now. If I just come over here with a bucket and scoop some lava out of there and put it in there, now I've got 17. This is not an arrangement that I want to continue to have working this way because it's not well automated. I would like to have the lava come directly out of the crucible and go in here, perhaps with a tank between to catch some of it so that I have a supply of lava available for manual use if I need it. And that brings us to the point of talking about transport. For this application I will need fluid transport, but there's transport for fluid, there's transport for items, and there's transport for energy. And in this particular mod pack, these things are closely tied to the particular tier of technology you're on, because a lot of the items for a particular mod are tied to that tier of technology. The lowest tier for transport generally is this extra utilities stuff right here with the transfer nodes that I'm using on the CobbleGen. It uses the same set of pipes everywhere, the transfer pipe, but you have to have one of these nodes everywhere that you want to pick up something. So here it's got a world interaction upgrade and it's picking up cobblestone out of the world. If I wanted to transfer items from one chest to another, I would need one of those nodes for the chest that items were to be taken out of. You don't need one for any chests that you place items into. So it tends to be the number of nodes you need is equal to the number of places you want to pull items from, not the number of places you want to deliver them to. The thing I don't like about this system early on, in this mod pack anyway, is that each one of these things, whether it's for transferring items or for transferring liquids, requires a minimum of a block of redstone. And in this particular mod pack, at least, redstone, especially in the early game, is a little bit of a bottleneck resource. So actually using these things for transferring liquids is not my first choice. The next tier up would probably be, well, let's talk, before I do that, let me just show you how bad it can get. The one that I'd actually probably want to use the most would be some sort of conduit from Ender.io. And the cheapest one requires temperate fluid ducts from thermal expansion to make, as well as servos from thermal expansion. The servos I don't think are too bad. It's glass and iron and redstone. The rest of it, though, the temperate fluid ducts require plates that are going to have to be made in industrial craft or immersive engineering machines. They require hardened glass that's going to have to come from thermal expansion machines. And I don't have any of those yet because I haven't built any machines for those yet, and I'm not even ready to build those machines. The conduit binder requires binder composite, which in turn requires stone dust. Stone dust comes from industrial craft machines, and I will have to make some of it. It also requires compressed sawdust. That comes from thermal expansion machines. It requires electrical steel, which I don't know if you can make electrical steel without the Ender.io machine that does it or not. Arc furnace alloying, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what this arc... Oh, the arc furnace is probably from immersive engineering, and I bet it is a fairly advanced machine, but I haven't really looked at it before. So in order to make even this lowest tier of fluid conduit from Ender.io, you really need to be fairly well along the tech tree. So this is not an option. What is an option is buildcraft pipes. But the problem with buildcraft pipes is that the pipe itself won't pick up the item at all. You're going to need I'm going to need to have, like for fluid pipe, I'll have to have a wooden pipe that's a wooden fluid pipe, and I will have to have a redstone engine to power it. And the redstone engine in this mod pack Requires a bunch of stuff. I think I'm going to need rubber before I can make the sticky piston, but I do have a rubber tree. And otherwise, the recipe is somewhat similar to the default one, but instead of wooden gears, it uses copper gears. That's not an issue. Instead of glass, it uses a basic circuit board, and that is because Forestry comes on the tech tree for this mod pack before Buildcraft. So the circuit board is made in the Carpenter from redstone, tin, and water, and I can do that. I just need to build the Carpenter first, and that is on today's agenda. So let's come over here and build a Carpenter. The Carpenter requires, the recipe is changed slightly from the default. Actually, the recipe for the Carpenter is not changed. It's glass, a sturdy casing, and bronze on the sides. That isn't changed, but the sturdy casing was made more expensive by changing some of the bronze for bronze gears. Well, I happen to have some bronze gears here. I made some in advance, and I'm going to make a couple of sturdy casings. Just like that. And one of these I will go ahead and use to make a Carpenter. So we've got a Carpenter. Another one that's going to come up very soon in Forestry is I'm going to need the thermionic fabricator. This block is used to make essentially vacuum tubes, glass tubes that are made with a particular material that are used for a variety of purposes. I'm going to have to use diamond tubes to make, I think, the laser for the assembly table, which is for anything that requires chipsets, which starting with the industrial craft machines, I will have to have those. I'm trying to think of what else. I'm going to set up a forestry farm because that's going to be my short-term tree production solution and agricultural automation. I'll probably set up 2 forestry farms actually, one for trees and one for crops. And those require tons of tin tubes, and I'm going to need some gold tubes and a few other sorts of tubes for those. So I have to have this machine. The recipe for this machine I think is only slightly changed from the default. It's using a gold chest instead of just a regular chest, and that may be the only difference from the forestry default. The gold chest has changed as well. Instead of using gold ingots around an iron chest, it uses gold plates, which have to come from an industrial craft machine or be made using the hammer. Same thing with the iron chest. Instead of iron ingots, it now uses plates. So I'll have to be using my hammer up quite a bit in order to make this. So let's get started on that. I'm going to need 16 iron. I'll just toss that in there. Let me see, where did I put that hammer? Oh, I have it in my inventory. Here we go. So there's those plates. I'll need a bunch of these. That music just seems to get louder all the time, doesn't it? Options, music and sound. I suppose I could just turn it completely off, but... So, let's go ahead and make that chest. And go for iron. Then upgrade it to gold. And we'll put that there. That there. Now I think it wanted it this way. No. It wanted it that way because it's more expensive. Always choose the most expensive recipe because that's the one the mod pack designers chose. Alright, let me just put these down here next to these so I can draw power off, because both of these machines require power, and then I'll have to get some connectors to tap that power. I have plenty of wire coils here that I made before, but I don't have any. I only have one wire connector and I'm going to need 2. So let me just go ahead and make some of those. Those are made from, it's just 3 copper ingots and 4 hardened clay. Copper ingots in a line like that, hardened clay like that, you get 8 of them. The wire coils are made from 8 copper ingots with a treated wood stick in the middle. I'm not going to make one of those right now. So I'll come over here and hook these up. And I have some trouble with this wiring sometimes. It does work, and it does what it's supposed to, it seems. However, it's set up so that the first machine in line gets all of the power, and the machines further down the line only get power if that machine stops accepting it all. So that can be a little bit of an issue sometimes when you've got things all sort of in a row. I think it'll be okay with this particular arrangement, but I'm going to branch off of that particular one instead of off of one of these. I could have branched off of any of these. I'm going to branch off of that one, and let's just see how this thing is doing. So this one is getting some power that way. The other thing to be aware of concerning power on these machines doesn't relate to the immersive engineering distribution. It relates to the thermionic fabricator specifically. If it has a recipe and it's been crafting something, then it will continuously consume power afterwards in order to maintain whatever glass you've got in here in its molten state. And so it will continuously draw power even if it's not doing anything once you've made something in it. There are a couple of solutions to this. One is that the immersive engineering does offer a switch block on power. I haven't really looked at it. Let me do that now to see if it's expensive. I'm not going to make one. I'm not going to do it, but it would be interesting to know if it's expensive or not. I think it's this one. So it's just a lever, a copper ingot, and a couple of hardened clay, and it sits on the ground, and you connect the power on both sides. It doesn't necessarily sit on the ground, I guess. You just have to have power connectors on both ends of it, and it works. Okay. I'm not going to make one of those because the other alternative, which is what I usually do, it's lazy, but it's what I do, is just to break this block afterwards and replace it so that it's back in its original state of never having had anything made in it. It's a little bit messy, but you don't really make these tubes a whole lot. Certainly if I was trying to automate the process of making tubes, I would have to come up with a better solution. So far I've never really had to do that. I just make some extra tubes whenever I'm making some, and that satisfies the requirement. So I'm not actually probably going to use these just this minute. I'll probably use them between episodes to prepare for making some other machines. There is one other thing I want to look at in this episode for sure, and that's making a blast furnace, because I'm going to want steel pretty soon as well. And the blast furnace, there are 2 different ones, and they both make steel. One of them is the immersive engineering one, which is made from a bunch of this type of brick. You can see it's hardened clay and sand around a ball of glue, an ender pearl, or TNT. And the other one is this one, which is the railcraft one, which is brick blocks and sand around a ball of glue, ender pearl, or TNT. The actual materials requirements are the same, it's just some of the processing along the way is a little bit different. I'm going to make the railcraft one, and the reason I prefer the railcraft one is because this one is specifically designed not to be automatable until you go and upgrade it into this one. Now it does have the advantage that if you upgrade it into this one, there are some things you can add on to it to improve its performance, but I'm just going to go with the railcraft one, and maybe I will experiment with this one some other day. This one can just be automated with hoppers, so it's pretty straightforward to deal with. So let me just go ahead and make that. And I'm going to use the TNT recipe because I don't have glue or ender pearls yet. And to make TNT, I think I figured up how much gunpowder I would need, and I think I do have enough. So let's see. So I have 9 of those. And I need 34 blocks, and I have 36, so I did have enough. Just barely enough gunpowder. One of these days when I get a mob farm set up, I'll have all the gunpowder I could possibly need. In the meantime, it comes from sifting dust in this machine over here, which is still going. Alright, and I'm going to set up my blast furnace in slightly crowded quarters for the moment. I'm just going to put it right here. It is a 3 by 3 block, 4 blocks high, with a hollow center. So 2 blocks are missing from the middle. And I forgot to bring... On this machine I have some cobblestone covers on the top to keep mobs from spawning up there. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Even though the covers are slightly different design. Alright, and this multi-block assembled as soon as I assemble the last block on it. You can tell because this brick at the bottom now has like a little portal on the bottom and none of the rest do. So there it is. In order to use this machine, for those of you who are not familiar with the Railcraft blast furnace, which hopefully is at least a few of you, otherwise this isn't very informative, it needs charcoal and iron. And the specific ratio that it uses is 4 charcoal to 1 iron. So this stack of charcoal will only do 16 iron, and I'll have to go and load some more charcoal in it. What you can do very easily, as I mentioned before, is it is automatable just by using a hopper. So I can stick a hopper on the side of it and load it up with charcoal, and then it will process all of the iron that's in there. The other thing that I've got going on here, I guess, is I mentioned that I was going to need to make a forestry farm, and I'm going to put that up here. I'll probably have to remove some of the area devoted to trees and move this a little bit so that it is somewhere not just immediately underneath a forestry farm. The forestry farm is a block that maybe a lot of people don't have exposure to, because the ones from Mine Factory Reloaded and Ender IO are more popular, probably for a pretty good reason. The forestry farm is a complex multi-block structure. It's pretty resource expensive to make compared to those others. You also have to lay out a whole bunch of bricks in a specific diamond-shaped pattern that's related to the size of the multi-block structure you built. It has 2 different modes, a manual mode and an automatic mode. In the automatic mode, it places its own dirt blocks, or whatever medium it's using. It's not always dirt, and picks them up afterwards and does what it needs to do. In manual mode, it depends on you to do that. The way it's configured uses those electron tubes and the circuits that you saw that other machine, those other forestry machines make. What else is interesting about it? The configuration is maybe a little more complex, generally, I would say, than something like the Mine Factory Reloaded one. It will not, you don't just dump seeds in it or dump saplings in it and it does its thing. You have to tell it what kind of farm it is, If you want to grow cacti, for example, you really have to tell it it's a cactus farm. It is configurable in quadrants, so there are 4 different sections to the layout, and you can do one thing in one quadrant and one thing in another quadrant, except that the whole farm has to be either automatic or manual. You can't go and mix types. But you can, if it's automatic, for example, do automatic tree farm on one part and automatic gourd farm, which grows pumpkins and melons, on the other. What the specific ones that I will be using will be the fully automated tree farm for growing trees, and so that I get saplings and wood and that sort of thing. On that subject, one of the things to also mention about the sapling, about the way it handles saplings in the forestry farm, is that it converts them into the equivalent forestry saplings. So if you plant oak trees there, they will all be forestry apple oaks that are the saplings that you get back, not the Minecraft vanilla oak sapling. That's not going to be any big deal for me, but it is something to keep in mind if you want to do something not related to forestry with those saplings. On the other hand, it's great because it's compatible with forestry trees, so if you prefer to grow whatever forestry trees you happen to be dealing with, let's say teak instead, then you can do that. The other farm that I'll be setting up will be the manual orchard. And orchard is a bit of a misnomer on that. It's manual because you're not actually telling the machine to plant the crops, you will plant them yourself. It's orchard because the machine is going to be operating as a fruit picking machine as opposed to harvesting crops. And when I say fruit picking, what I really mean is that it is going to go and right-click the blocks in its area in order to get things from them, which is exactly what you do with these AgriCraft crop sticks. So if you set the forestry farm up as a manual orchard, you can grow AgriCraft crops on it. Because you're setting the soil yourself, then you can set sand or dirt, whatever it has to grow on. So that's a way to get AgriCraft crops to work on the forestry farm, and it actually works very well with them as long as you understand that that's what you have to do. It's not, in my view, very clear. You kind of have to do a little research on the internet to find that, but that is how it works. There is a limitation on that means that I will still, over the long term, probably want to use the Mine Factory Reloaded farm, which is this. If we go into, what is that? If I wanted these redstodendron seeds, which produce redstone as a result, which I will, these will produce redstone for me, which is a good thing, because like I said, it's a bottleneck. But I can't use, I don't think, I haven't tried this, but I'm gonna say I'm pretty confident that I can't use the forestry farm to grow this, and the reason is because of this requirement right here, that there be redstone ore beneath it. The forestry farms require that you have beneath the soil on each layer that you have a specific block, which in my case will just be stone bricks, but there are several of them you can use. You can use nether bricks, you can use stone bricks, you can use sandstone. I will experiment with this before I absolutely commit to it, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to use a forestry farm to grow any of these crops that require a specific block below them, which would include any of these seeds across here that grow some of your resources. This one requires nether quartz below, gold ore, bauxite ore, tin ore, copper ore. And I will just go ahead and tell you there are recipes for these things in the game. This one apparently does require that you get it from the laser drill from Mine Factory Reloaded. That's not what I mean by saying there are recipes in here. This one, if I Well, this one doesn't show it either. There are recipes in them for it. It's stone plus redstone. I think stone plus a block of redstone for the redstone one in a induction smelter from thermal expansion. And I'm not sure why it's not showing up. I have seen cases where recipes did not actually show up in this mod pack. If you run into that, you may need to just reload the game. And an example of one that often doesn't show up is hardened aluminum glass. You see I'm clicking it and I'm not getting one, but there is a recipe in the mod pack for it. If I reload the game, it probably will show up, as will some of those others. It looks like it may specifically be recipes for the induction smelter that have a problem, because this one is made in the induction smelter as well. Anyway, that is all I need to discuss today, I guess. I hope that you found some of this information useful or informative. If you haven't played this mod pack at all, then probably it is. If you have, or even if you're new to Minecraft, modded Minecraft in general, maybe it was. I guess I'm going to head out, so thanks again for watching.